Well, I'm excited to be before you guys today with the new 2015 GMC Canyon. A truck that I think is very important because I don't know if you've noticed, but the compact mid-size truck segment has been dwindling, to say the least. And the two entrants that are still there, which is the Frontier and the Tacoma, have largely been neglected, you could say, by their manufacturers. So the fact that GM has jumped back into the mid-size segment now with a brand new truck, the Canyon, and its corporate sister, the Chevy Colorado, to me, makes this very important. And in so doing, it kind of raises some questions. Three, in my opinion. Firstly, how does this compete or compare with the full-size trucks out there? When it comes to capabilities, dimensions, price, fuel economy, where should you be looking when you're looking at purchasing a truck, mid-size or full-size? Secondly, an important one, can this unseat the reigning champ of the mid-size segment, the Toyota Tacoma? And as many of you guys know, and some of you probably are, they are a die-hard loyal bunch. In fact, many of you are probably typing the answer to that question right now. Just give me a second to try, okay? And thirdly, this one matters to me a lot, does the Canyon kind of harken back, bring back some of the inherent goodness that we used to have kind of in the old mini truck, smaller compact truck days, when you could get a small short bed, two-wheel drive, four-cylinder truck that still gave you a bed, but you can move around town and do things economically, and it was really just versatile as a true day-to-day vehicle, unlike kind of the really big full-size trucks that seems to be the trend now. Well, if you've just stumbled upon this channel for the first time, I'm Greg Kavanaugh. This is my amateur car review channel, Gallup Journey Test Drives, and I do point out it is an amateur car review channel. These are simply my unbiased, hopefully, and amateur opinions. I'm in no way connected to the manufacturers. These vehicles that I drive for the channel are completely on loan just from the local dealerships, who I'm in no way affiliated with either. So basically, I hope what that means for you is that this review is something that's honest, it's unscripted, it's not corporate, and it will hopefully be applicable to you. So please just stick around and give me a chance. So, does the Canyon harken back to the glory days of the mini truck, the compact truck? The answer is no. Just to kind of give you a frame of reference, I mean, besides me standing here next to it, I went around town as I was test driving the Canyon, and I decided that I would compare it to other vehicles on the road. So firstly, here it is compared to my '98 Dodge Dakota, which in its day was considered a mid-size truck. Here it is compared to the last gen Canyon, four-door short box. You can see in the comparison there, it is quite a bit longer, similar in width. Here it is, interestingly, compared to, I believe it's a 1995 F350 four-door long box dually. This is a coworker's truck. And you can see there's not that big of a difference between these two trucks. And lastly, here it is next to a Toyota Tundra, not a Tacoma, a Tundra, mind you. And this is only the double cab, not a four-door. And that last truck to me brings up probably the most important point. You can see just how big full-size trucks have gotten these days. And you can see that the Canyon here actually is more in line with how big full-size trucks used to be, maybe 10, 15 years ago. That's an important thing to note. Now, it is interesting when you compare it to that F350, how they're getting a four-door with pretty good space in the back and an 8-foot bed in what doesn't seem to be overall a way larger package. That's an interesting thing to note, but that's another topic altogether. What I would like to point out is that I think GM has done a pretty good job of hitting the middle ground of enough size without being too much. One of the key things that I notice is that this is a 74-inch box. That is a highly usable box. And not only that, I can reach over, I'm only 5'8", and I can touch the bed, the floor of the bed, no problem. That means I can get things in and out of the truck, mountain bikes, groceries, camping gear, tools, whatever, without a lot of problem. Of course, you can still get a 4x8 sheet of plywood home from the Home Depot, either with the tailgate down or with it sitting in with the tailgate up. So, I mean, it's still gonna serve a lot of your needs in that fashion. And this is the 4-door. 4-door cargo space for people. I'm just gonna come out and say right away, yes, it's not as big as the crew cabs on the full-size offerings. And there's a point why it's not as big. Those things are ginormous, and there is a place for those. But for someone like myself, I like the Canyon's, I don't know if compromise is the word, but blend of cargo space for people here in the cab, cargo space in the bed with a useful 6-foot bed, and then wheelbase and overall dimensions when it comes to versatility and ease of driving. I think this is a really great blend. So let's point a few things out. First of all, I'm 5'8", so this is where I was sitting as a driver, 5'8". Here I am behind myself. I have plenty of knee room. You could sit behind me as a 6-footer, or vice versa, a 6-foot driver and a 5'8"-ish passenger. So that means, you know, if you're a taller family in terms of the adults, but you still have younger kids or teenagers, you know, they can fit back here pretty well. It's of course not as wide as a full-size truck, so 3 abreast isn't quite as comfortable, but it's plenty doable. Now, there's a few things I'm not quite sure why they did what they did. I mean, there's great ergonomics back here. You got your own windows, you got your own, you know, that roll down, not like, say, a double cab or an extended cab on some models. You got your own handle on the outside for getting in and out. It's a true 4-door. Cup holders here in the door, power and so forth here in the center console. Now, the seats fold down. I don't have a clue why they do that. Not really sure. I don't know why they do that. And then these fold up. Now, in my Sierra video, you can see the Sierra has basically a completely flat load floor here, which is not really doable with trying to package all this stuff in this wheelbase on a compact mid-size truck. But more importantly, the Sierra doesn't have any of this plastic cladding or anything in the way underneath the seat, which means with the seat up, you get a lot of cargo space there. And then with the seat down on the Sierra, you can slide stuff underneath. You don't get that here on the Canyon, which it's not quite as versatile in that aspect. There's a little bit of storage underneath there, maybe jumper cables and other things you don't need to get at regularly, but generally speaking, you can't count on that for cargo space. But as a whole, I'm just going to repeat that it's worth considering that you get a 4-door that can seat 5 people, have a decent sized bed without being a humongous truck all around. Now, compared with the Tacoma, particularly on paper, you can see that they're very similar actually, with the Canyon taking several categories and the Tacoma really only winning out in one, which is price. Now, it's always hard to compare vehicles directly because of their websites and options and so forth, but it appears that if you can do your best to get a crew cab long box, you're going to save about $1,000 or so with the Tacoma. Now, everywhere else, the Canyon seems to edge it out. Let's talk powertrains first of all. The 4-liter in the Tacoma makes 266 foot-pounds of torque, and here the 3.6-liter makes 269. I mean, essentially a wash there. However, when you're looking at horsepower, the story's a little bit different. The Tacoma makes only 236 horsepower from its 4-liter, which I think might be a touch underrated. And the 3.6-liter here, direct injected from GM, makes 305 horsepower. That's a considerable amount, a considerable increase in the amount of horsepower that these two make. Here, it's mated to a 6-speed, the Tacoma a 5-speed. That's a pretty important thing to note. And when it comes to fuel economy, the Canyon also edges out the Tacoma. 24 miles to the gallon highway here compared to the Tacoma's 21. That's a 3 mile per gallon difference, not small. Of course, this is EPA cycle. And then this is rated for 17 city, 20 combined. Now, on paper, yes, the Canyon does edge out the Tacoma in many categories, but in the flesh, in the metal, when you actually spend some time driving both of them, you realize that the Canyon is really much more like mid-sized truck 2.0 versus the Tacoma's 1.0. What do I mean by that? This just feels like a whole other class of truck. The design aesthetic is much richer, much newer and fresher. It doesn't feel so utilitarian on the inside. The materials, the stitching, the layout and ergonomics of everything just seems a touch higher in terms of class and feel and refinement. It's quiet, it rides really well. There is a very significant driving experience that is different between the two. I should also mention that it's worth noting that the Canyon is going to be coming out with a 2.8 liter Duramax diesel. I think this engine is going to do wonders for the Canyon in terms of fuel economy and usability, although there is going to be the question of how much is it going to cost you to upgrade to that engine. But it could be a game changer for GM. When compared to full-size truck standards, this is where the question becomes a little more interesting. Let's start with price, because this is really the big question people are wondering about. Does it make sense to buy this over a full-size in terms of price? Right now, as I'm shooting this video, probably not. This one is about $36,000 on the nose as tested, and you're going to be looking at being in the low to mid 40s for a similarly equipped Sierra. That's a significant difference. However, this is a brand new vehicle that just came out. The Sierras are sitting on the lot as 2014s, offering a pretty healthy rebate right now, which is going to get you really close back to Canyon territory. So as of now, financially, simply in terms of sticker price, it's not necessarily worth noting that the Canyon's a better deal. Now let's look at some of the other characteristics though. So when it comes to fuel economy, this is a big one because it's interesting to note. If you're comparing the 3.6 here with the 4.3, the new 4.3 in the Sierra, you'll notice that the Sierra actually ekes out slightly better fuel economy. Now that is not for a 4-door 4x4, but the point is the 4.3 makes similar fuel economy. However, I don't know that it's necessarily fair to compare the most powerful V6 in the Canyon versus the least powerful engine in the Sierra, because here we should probably be comparing the 4-cylinder to the 4.3. So let's compare it to the V8. Most people who jump up to the Sierra are going to want the V8, I would guess. So the V8 there makes a good 355 horsepower, and you're going to lose about 2 miles per gallon across the cycle, particularly on the highway. Is that enough to make you eke towards the Canyon? Not necessarily. Now, my final point though is where I think it matters the most. This vehicle is probably more than capable for 90% plus of the buyers out there who buy trucks. And you guys know this out there. We all use our trucks. I use mine for hauling wood, hauling goods, for working on my house, for hauling my mountain bikes, all that kind of stuff. And the reality is this truck would be more than enough truck for me. And I would guess that I represent a good portion of buyers out there, especially with a family of 3 kids as well. So then it boils down to actual size and dimensions. And I really think that the Canyon here is hitting kind of a sweet spot in terms of size. It's not as small as the trucks of yesteryear, and I realize that. However, this feels immensely more maneuverable and less cumbersome than the full-size trucks today. The full-size trucks today are just downright huge. And of course, there's a time and a place for those. But for me as a buyer, and as I think for many Americans out there, this could actually be the perfect truck for many of their needs. If anything speaks to it, it's worth going down to the dealership and making sure you check out both the Canyon and the Sierra to see which one feels better and will be better day to day for your needs. I need to give a big shout out to the folks that made this test drive possible. That is Rico Auto Complex of Gallup, New Mexico. Check out their link in the description. I should point out, this is the only Canyon they got in. It just came out. It could be sitting on their lot for sale and people looking at it, but they knew that it was a hot item. They knew that I would want to have it on my channel and in the magazine, so they made it happen. So a big thanks to them. Lastly, of course, a big thanks to you guys liking, subscribing, sharing. All of those things really matter. They really help with what I do. And of course, commenting. So I appreciate the comments, both good and bad, just because I like the conversations that happen and the feedback you guys give me. So keep those coming, and hopefully I'll see you guys next time.
Again, Bruce one more time, making a pass, looking for a Sheila. 60 car like this is going to get lots of Sheilas, all interested.
All Sheilas.
Oh yeah, here comes Bruce, 60 Bruce in a 64.
Oh, there's Bruce now.
Oh.